And there's nothing live. There's nothing edit. And if you say anything as well that you're like, oh shit, I mean to say it, literally just go delete that last
I know
sentence.
there's a chance that something like that comes out, but we'll see how it goes.
All right, good. Name, position, and business.
Yianni Barakos, owner and founder of Mason Dixon Distillery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, give me an overview of Mason Dixon Distillery and like from a present day, somebody walks in here, what's kind of the experience that they should expect here?
The experience, it should be good food, good drinks, good conversation. We are cooking the food. We are making the drinks. We're making the liquor to make the drinks. And then we are, curating the environment in which you can have, and we encourage you to have those conversations. Overall, we want it to be a remarkable experience. That is what we're shooting for. Something exceptional, something extraordinary, not something you're going to find everywhere else. I have long since had this theory that just about anybody can cook food, just about anybody can make drinks, and just about anybody can serve them. But everything you do, before that first drink hits the table, before that check ever comes, is really where the difference is made. And that's where those are the moments that we try to teach to chase and teach to enhance and just to elevate the experience overall.
What about so outside of here, you guys? So every once in a while, people see some of your products on the shelf when they're driving around and stuff like that. What are some of the products we can see out in the wild?
Yeah, so really, what you're going to find out in the wild, there's two categories. One's going to be for on-site consumption. You're going to find us in a handful of restaurants, a handful of bars, a bunch of breweries. Your other option is going to be within Pennsylvania beer distributors. With the law change a little over a year ago, RTDs, ready to drinks. I've always called them canned cocktails because that's what we do. You're going to find us, oh man, I don't know what my last count is. I know we eclipsed, I think we eclipsed 150 beer distributors. So we are expanding our footprint. Those beer distributors can be found, gratuitous plug, find masondixon.com, put your address in. It'll tell you the closest beer distributor to you. Not every beer distributor carries all the flavors. So if you're looking for something specific before you drive, it's worth a phone call.
Awesome. Now let's go a little bit to the story behind Mason Dixon Distillery. All right. So Yianni, are you always from Gettysburg?
Oh man, this is why I'm leaning back and getting comfortable. No, I am not always from Gettysburg. I myself, South Central Pennsylvania native, born and raised here, not Gettysburg specifically, but South Central PA my whole life. The origin story, I feel, truly begins well before I'm ever born. I am second generation born here in this country. My family all immigrated from Greece, immigrated, naturalized, came in pursuit of the American dream and a better life for themselves. And we're from the mountains of Greece. And I tell people the way I sum that up is my heritage is hillbilly. Different country hillbilly, but the same core principles that I think you find in what I'm going to call the American hillbilly. And that is they make what they need, they raise what they need, they grow what they need. And then the ultimate one that binds it together for me, and I believe is very much inside of me, a driving factor is, they survived because of community. They helped each other out. They cared about each other. A strong sense of community is I think that last thing. I think hillbillies often said with disdain. I don't say it that way. I think it is almost it's almost the like perfect ideal form of civilization in a way. It's human. It's human.
It's one of those things. I grew up in West Virginia and Philadelphia, so I had a split childhood of like an urban life and suburban life, and then very rural life.
Yep.
And then when I got older in college, I learned, growing up, I was called a redneck all the time, and then I went to college downtown in Philadelphia, so of course I was a hillbilly and a redneck and all this stuff. And then when we got to class, we learned where redneck came from, and we were like, oh wait, these guys. They were called rednecks because they were fighting for their rights to work, and it was the red bandanas they were using while they're on the picket lines.
Yeah.
And it's like when you all of a sudden you take that layer, that onion away from some of these labels that we put on things, you realize that there's a deeper story to that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, separate conversation. We'll go deep into it, but it's amazing how the origin of a word or term often ends up being displaced from what it means today. That's an interesting thing. What time does to things like that.
Sometimes it glorifies and sometimes it perverts the original origin of the word.
Yeah, I guess we would venture to say very rarely does it say true to the original meaning.
Very true. Very true. Talk to me a little bit about, you talked about the immigration, immigrating in and everything like that. Walk through when, pre your birth. So when that comes through.
I sidetracked big time.
Yeah, I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
We're going. We got time. Don't worry. We jumped right in. It's 6:09. We're already there. So pre your birth, what is your parents' life like when they get here? And then how are they beginning to integrate themselves to this community when they come over?
I from what I know, I believe it was kind of the old school classic immigrant format, which was work a lot, save a lot until you get to and be very, very frugal and thrifty until you can get to the point where you can deploy it to start your own thing. There are definitely instances that I've gotten from one grandfather of, I mean, it can only be summed up as, I mean, he was in the place he was working. I mean, it was racism, copious amounts of it, and just kind of head down, persevered, pushed through, stuck up for himself, and eventually got to the point where he could build something for his own family. So that's life before me, but here in this country, that's a classic old school work your ass off, save, eventually deploy it to try to create a better life for yourself and your family. The part that I remain fascinated with, and I think is a huge part of who I am today, is the amazing thing in doing that in while trying to while elevating your own family is the impact you have on the community around you, which is that you end up elevating those around you as well. And I don't I don't think every operator has that mindset, um, but I know that I do.
When you talk about, I'm gonna ask this in a very specific way too, because it's something about that work ethic that you just brought up that, like, if you're in the South Central PA area, and I'm sure other areas of the country see these pockets, and this industry specifically with the Greek immigration and everything like that, the hospitality, I think of like, George Sagaius and everything like that over in York area and things like that. And it's like, as soon as you go through, you realize it's like, it's all originating from, people like your family and things like that. And then now it's bleeding out into the kids, and it's really powerful to see it really expand and grow in that way.
Everything you said is accurate. Where was the question in that?
The question was getting to, I think that, what we're talking about with community is really the ethic of, there's some communities and some aspects of, like, generationally where it's like, I must resist what my parents have done and I want to do something myself. Whereas this is more like, work hard and also do what you want to do.
I had that same resistance.
Okay.
My dad worked for a lot of people to scrape by, eventually start his own business. I was, when you're real little, like, you like going to work with your dad, and then eventually you realize it's really tough when the bar, it's really tough when the bar is purposely set so much higher for you than the peers around you, which is tough when you're a kid, but you appreciate it more when you're an adult. But I mean, as soon as I turned 16, I got a car. I was like, I'm not working for you anymore. And my dad goes, that's fine. You can work wherever you want, but you better make sure you work. I think the Greeks and hospitality as a whole, I think there's an element of, um, I think that work ethic is what carries it through, but I mean, it's a brutal industry.
Yeah.
It is demanding. It is, I think, we're just, if we're built for it, or if it was nature and nurture. I don't know which one, but
I've always thought, like, it was also that the hospitality was also part of the culture originally, so it made it easier to make it a business.
It is, but yeah, it absolutely is, and I think it came over. We work these really, really long days for like a little bit, but if we take the chance on ourselves and we work these really, really long days, it might have the chance to be a little bit more. But yeah, the hospitality can just be brutal. Lots of hours, lots of sacrifice. But yeah, hospitality itself, yeah, without a doubt. My wife and I, when we went on our honeymoon, we bounced around a couple of different places in Europe, and stayed at some nice places along the way, and then some whatever, different places, and there was a lot of we felt that unless we were presented perfectly, where there's a little bit level different of treatment. I when we showed up in Greece, we were like two connecting flights, like haggard sweats, and from the moment we finally got to where we were staying, the open arms were incredible. I remember we got into a place we were staying. It was pretty late and it was off season, so restaurants and everything were closing up early. We asked the lady where, we're hungry. Where can we go eat? Before that, when we checked into the room, ended up being one of the less expensive places we stayed on the whole trip. And there was a bottle of wine, and there was chocolates, and there was fresh fruit. Other places that we stayed leading to there, knowing we were coming for our honeymoon. Anyway, she goes, I don't know, it's pretty late. Go try this place. Let them know I sent you. We went, and they're like, no, sorry, we're done. So we wandered around, found a place, and I asked him if the kitchen was still open. And I remember the guy looked back to the other guy, and he goes, so he invited us in. We spent like 2.5 hours there, and we were the only people in the restaurant. Cooked a ton of food for us. My eyes were definitely bigger than my stomach, so there was a lot left over. But it was my wife's first time going to Greece, and I wanted her immediately just get a little taste of all these things that I had missed from the couple of times I got to go. And as I was leaving, it was only then, as I was looking back at the place we had gone to eat, and I realized they had closed a half hour before we ever got there. And that I don't know. I don't believe that to really be a rarity in that culture. Proud to be an American. Wouldn't want to be anything else, but definitely proud of my heritage and the parts of the culture that I get to keep and integrate to my life as an American.
I think it's, from my perspective in the industry of being on the vendor side and the service side of things, I have to say that statistically, the trust and the loyalty and the dependability has always relied on that type of generational mentality, as opposed to those that are coming in fresh. And again, I'm speaking of my own experience and not broadcasting any sort of broad stroke to it. And I honestly find a reassurance when people like yourself do step back in. And a lot of times it seems like lately it's been a boomerang where it's like, once they're able to clear the fog of like resisting it, they're like, oh yeah, there is something that's comfortable in that, because it is sort of ingrained into what I'm doing, is to be generous, to bring people in, and to bring, when that's the mission, and all these bottles and the glass and the aluminum is just a vessel to community. When that concept is kind of locked in, I feel like a lot of people were able to run a lot farther.
Yeah.
Talk about a little, we're going to come right back to the distillery, but let's talk a little bit about what was the business your dad had, and then what were the type of thing, like some of the skills you might have grabbed from that eventually led into your entrepreneurship.
So my father's first business was Silk City Diner, Denver, Pennsylvania, and he was partners with his brother in that. Things learned there, and this is where I always tell people, especially having two of them, got to learn a lot of things I didn't want to do, a lot of things I didn't want to be, but things that definitely stuck out to me was, I mean, the diner, it wasn't like 10-page menu, but they had a big menu, and everything got made from scratch. It was real food. It was never, no shortcuts were ever taken. So that was definitely something that stuck with me. But then the overall idea of above and beyond, I remember I was pretty young, 96, 97. What was the year we had that massive, like,
I was 96.
96.
Yep.
We had that massive blizzard at like 3-4 foot of snow drifting everywhere. Everything was just closed. And the diner had a flat roof, and they were worried about it. So we were shoveling the roof off. Diner was closed, and I was down on the ground because I was little, and flat rubber roof covered in snow is probably not the place to be. I got to go up, but it was like closely supervised, right? And one, it's like a winter wonderland. Two, I got extra time with my dad. But what stuck with me was people showed up. We were not open. And I remember that I had turned them away. I'm like, I'm sorry, we're closed. And I ran over to let my dad know. He goes, no, go get them before they go. I also thought it was phenomenal. Like people showed up on 4-wheelers and snowmobiles, like not on a back road, like a main road. I'm like, this is cool. And my dad goes, no, we got stuff that's we're going to lose anyway. Bring them in. We'll feed them. And they made some sandwiches and hot coffee. And my dad, way back in the day with the Baltimore Culinary Institute, baking and pastry chef is his degree. So desserts, it was sandwiches. It was stuff that was going to go bad anyway. And he just we got to take a break from work and sit at the counter and just it was an intimate moment. I told Nate before we started, I slept like 2 hours last night. There's a newborn 4-week-old at our house, so I'm probably a little extra emotional at this moment. But that was
Do you remember what you guys talked about?
couldn't tell you. I
That's
just remember
okay.
I just remember the feeling. And it's funny because that translates into things that stick with you. I never dug that deep in that memory. I remember doing that. What that I didn't remember how that felt. What I always wanted to create here at Mason Dixon was I wanted that diner counter camaraderie, but I also wanted kind of that like German beer hall roar of people, like like medium volume roar of people enjoying themselves. That was what I set out to create here. But yeah, that was yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that because it's important. And for you and I, we're I think exactly the same age, and now we're into fatherhood. And I think it's really important for us to think of those memories because I think our life has kind of taken us a million ways, and I think it's the slowing down. And I think that's one of the things that we don't slow down enough to take those intentional moments.
I think slowing down to take intentional moments is one of the few things that has a chance at slowing down how fast time moves.
It's 100% correct.
Yeah.
I'm about 6 to 10 months into realizing that. And hence why I'm doing this.
Realization and implementation
is a transition.
You know, sometimes you need to come back and remind yourself. But yeah.
No, I appreciate it. And that's why I do this. And that's why I try to come on site. And I intentionally want people, this industry we run and we don't stop for 59 minutes every once in a while and reflect.
Yeah.
And with intention. So I appreciate you sharing that story. What age do you think you were when you realized whether you were going to run the things with your dad or you were going to do something on your own, that pivot mindset of entrepreneurship and carving your own path? What year do you think that kind of clicked in?
I don't know. I definitely fought my dad on this a lot. I fought all my family on this a lot. I knew for a long time. I'd say probably really started like ring true when I'm starting to figure out where things are going to go in my life, right? So probably like high school.
Okay.
I'm starting to think about, all right, what's my thing? And I knew I knew and still do know, that I have some attributes that may make it difficult for me to work for someone else. And I also knew that I generally have a higher than average ability to not let the stress of risk get to me. And there's also something in me that knows that if I'm going to work hard, I'm going to bet on myself and see how that bet pays out or doesn't. So I said I fought with my dad on that a lot. I went back and forth. I was like, I want to try this. I'm going to do this. He was like, you don't know how to do that. You know, like just go work for somebody else. Cause so like parents, I think sometimes talk about things that are really on my mind. Right. And to try to prevent their children from feeling the same pain that they've gone through, have a habit of overcorrecting, if left unchecked and not being, again, intentional, purposeful about it. And I believe that was 100% what my father was doing. So he definitely was like pushing me against it. go work for somebody else, enjoy the security of a 9 to 5, and somebody else worrying about the big problems, which you trade one master for another. The only thing you're guaranteed when you work for somebody else is a paycheck for the hours you worked. Your next paycheck is your next set of hours to work is not a guaranteed thing, and I argue you have minimal of any control over that. Flip side, owner operator, it's all on you. Sink or swim, it's all on you. You do have control. You do have some degree of control, but it lands on you. And that's another level or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of stress.
I've talked on here a lot about, I've had 22 different businesses that have failed over this, but this business that I have now has been around for 17 years, and it was always the guiding light that those things were the side hustle concepts that spun off. What are some of the ones for you that you kind of, I sit back and laugh at where I'm like, that didn't work?
I really only tried one business.
Okay, good.
And it was making custom sportswear, like team uniform stuff. Nice. and that sort of stuff. And did a little bit in it. Nothing ever significant. It was never more than a side hustle. And it definitely wasn't something that really ended up like paying out for me, but definitely learned some lessons along the way. I'd argue that the 2022 you said, I was recently told something in a way that made it, I mean, subconsciously, you know this, right? But to hear it out loud, I believe the exact words are like, energy's never wasted.
Mm-hmm.
And if you keep that in mind, then it's easy to remember the part that I think I kind of already knew, as long as you're learning lessons along the way.
I joke around, the Free Mind Group's been around for 17 years, but it's kind of Optimus Prime. It's like the whatever that transformer is when they all come together.
Yep.
So it's the best of all 22 ideas. That's really forming now.
Yeah. I mean, that's the business principle of that. I don't know. It might have been Jack Welch. It's one of the few things I remember learning in college. Might not have been college. Might have been on my own. Doesn't matter. Always be looking for the next thing to put yourself out of business. And that doesn't mean like fail, right? That means find the next thing that fits you better, that generates something bigger. So you by default end up leaving that other thing behind because, energy put into this gives you X, but energy put into this gives you X times 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What made you choose Gettysburg or as far as this place for Mason Dixon Distillery, and then specifically this location? Yeah.
Gettysburg. I grew up doing a lot of things. I worked for my dad. One of my favorite things that I've ever done was there was a horse farm up the road from my house. So I love farming. I love getting to operate equipment. I love the sense of accomplishment. I say accomplishment, I mean, you know exactly what you did at the end of the day, and that's not something every career job has. And what I'm going to back up a couple steps. The reason the story begins in Greece is, yes, the hospitality is a thing, but 2, I said making what they need. I got shown how to make a still for my grandfather when I was 11 years old and went home and built my first still at 11 years old. Played with it a lot. Always wanted to come back to it much later in life. And then I lost track. Remind me of the question.
You keep going where you're going. Actually, go with that story. I'll come back to it. Yeah.
Okay. How did I end up in Gettysburg? Played around with it, liked it, loved it. The idea that I could build something that in turn made something else was just hit all the soothing points in my mind, right? But I had also, when I was in college working a summer job, discovered project management for general construction. And the other thing I learned in being in my father's restaurant, I think, is people skills and just, being just a little bit better at reading a person and being able to relate to more people and not having to change who I am to do that relation, always being able to be myself, but being able to highlight anyway. I think that was huge and key. Distillery, project management. I discovered project management. I thought it was the perfect marriage of people skills, mechanical skills. I've always loved to tinker. And the idea of being able to earn a decent living working Monday through Friday, being the son of a restaurateur, was like highly appealing. I remember seeing some adults complain when they had to work more than 40 hours a week, when I myself was putting in my 40 with that company and then working more on the weekends. I'm like, give me the pieces I don't have and like let me get turned loose because I'm going to run circles, right? Ended up getting in a car accident on my way to work, and ended up being essentially bedridden for the better part of 2 years. In the middle of that, I had a couple doctors tell me, well, can't find anything else wrong with you. Time to go on disability. And that was just soul crushing, and made one final push. I gathered myself, told myself I owed myself to try one more time before I accepted those diagnoses and diagnoses, doesn't matter. Got myself to see a doctor who got me to a doctor who got me on a path. Discovered along that path that hole was never going to be a thing, so it was best that I found a way to work around it. I knew distilling was like the thing I wanted to build for myself later on, and I said, why not now? The words from my doctor that really kind of kicked this into motion were he said, you're going to have to come to terms with the idea that there's always going to be pain, there's always going to be limitations, you need to find a way to work around it. My idea of finding a way to work around it was build something big enough that I have a team around me, so on the days when I cannot come to work, cannot get out of bed, cannot think clearly because of migraine, I have a team that can pitch in and cover for me. Ended up here in Gettysburg because a buddy of mine knew what I was looking to do. He knew that I love farming and wanted it to be a close part of what I did for the distillery. Let me know that the National Park Service had a couple parcels of farmland on the battlefield that the public could apply for. Applied for it, got a phone call that said, love the idea, but you're not a farmer. We give ag leases to farmers. Kept him on the phone for a little bit, kept Zach on the phone for a little bit, and turned the no into a yes, a conditional yes. I got a 1-year lease when they were handing out 5. I think there might have been parting words of "Don't mess up my land," something to that effect. Sorry, not quoting you. It's what remains in my head, Zach. I know it's not exactly what you said. Started farming, scrambled to find a place, found this place, fell in love. I needed something with square footage, right? Restaurant operation, production operation, and square footage that I had a chance at maybe being able to afford in Gettysburg. Found this place, fell in love. I was the only one. First time I brought my mother here to show her, the only thing she did was cry, and the only thing she said was give it back. It would rain as hard inside as outside. There was no running water. There was no sewer. There was one little 60 amp electrical panel that clearly caught on fire many times. And there were wild animals living inside. So kicked her out, put my head down, got to work. Secured the ag lease, started farming, got this place, and just put my head down and did work. Took almost exactly a year and a half from when I got in here to when we got open. Got open. First 2 weeks, we were just a bar, kind of a shitty bar, because at that time there was no reciprocity, so we could only make drinks with what we had. And the only thing we had was white rum and vodka. 2 weeks later, started running lunch and dinner. 2 weeks after that, started doing Sunday brunch. And then the real process of introspective-based constant process and experience improvement began, and we haven't stopped. I'm proud of what this place has been, and you put your finger on a calendar ever, always. Hey, there's moments where I know, like, I really beat myself if we fall short or miss an opportunity or whatever, but I've always been proud of what we put together. But we are not the business we were when we first started. It is better in every measurable aspect, and even better in all those intangibles as well. So try to be very purposeful about everything we do here. Speaking of purpose and intent, try to be very purposeful about everything we do and don't do here, because our intent is to deliver that remarkable experience and give you something that you remember, something that makes you feel. That's what we're here to do.
How old are your kids now?
One is our eldest daughter is 3 years old, and the youngest daughter is about to be 4 weeks old.
I'm
sorry, is about to be 5 weeks old. Yeah.
Yeah. When you bring them in here and they're running around and stuff like that, do you?
One runs around, the other one not. Obviously.
Not so much.
I know the question was. I just wanted to pick on it.
You're good. You're good.
She loves it here. She is. She walks around like she owns the place. When when my wife went back to work, we still hadn't found childcare for daytime, so it was daddy daycare till she was 9-ish months old. So she was coming in, and some days I could get work done with her, and some days I couldn't. And first job, I was so excited for this day. The first job I ever taught her how to do was wrap silverware. She loves bouncing around with my girls, going to tables to take orders. My girl's got her own notepad and her own pen, partially because they were tired of her taking their own. So she loves to play waitress at home. Yeah, it's I'm not gonna do what my dad did, which was steer her away from this. I'm not gonna steer either of them away from this. I am going to let her know that she has choices, and both of them know that they have choices, and as long as they take pride in the work they do, and they're happy to put their name on it, and it's honest, great, I'll support them. We are raising our daughters to be competent, confident, and capable. How they choose to deploy those skills and what that ends up looking like them for in life, it's not known, right? It would be impossible to know, but I feel strongly that if we land those skills, that they'll be more than fine in whatever they choose to do and however they go on to live their life.
I want to close out, and I want to thank you for the time today, but I also want to thank you for being willing to go on camera without any questions or prep. And that is something that I knew you would be perfect for it. And I got the result that I expected with you and more, but I have to say it because a lot of people are not comfortable in that sense. And I want to bring that to light to the audience to make sure that remind people that they understand that we didn't have a lunch dinner after. We didn't have breakfast today. We didn't run through the script and tag the sponsors. This is a real conversation and it's organic. So I want to remind people that.
Yeah, this was all shut cold. There was no prep given. And to me, it goes back to, I think I touched on part of it. It's, one, I'm living what I'm talking about, right? So it's easy to talk about that, but also there are no different versions of me. I do not give audience A one version and audience B another version. I may tighten up the vernacular a little bit and swear a little bit less when I know there's a camera, or when I know that there's when the individuals I'm talking to that it won't land well with. But dialing up a little bit, dialing in the minutia of the interaction is, again, I think goes back to spending time at my dad's diner growing up. But no, I getting in front of a camera and being comfortable, I don't know. I don't know that it was ever. I mean, I don't know where that. I don't know.
Well, it's a lot. Well, the point is, you proved you kind of went deeper into what it comes down to is when you do walk the talk and you are who you are. It doesn't matter if there's a lens in front of you or not.
That there's my line. It's easy to be. I find it easy to be authentic,
Mm-hmm.
and if there was, I've long since said, if there's one word to sum up the experience here and what we do, it is that everything is real. And real and authentic are going to be synonyms of one another. So that's just goes to show the connection that can and often exists that you're going to get from small businesses versus not small businesses.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Genuinely and truly.